But with all he lived through and lived past, what would stick out the most for Grandpa Norman? Had you ever imagined that his son would speak no Turkish? That his grandkids wouldn't even know French? That one day on his house in Citrus Avenue, he'd get this letter in the mail that confirmed his worst fears about his family back in Europe. And that would be the one and only time his son would see him cry. You see, I feel like I've always known the word Holocaust, but I also felt it hadn't really affected my family. Because my mom's family had gotten out of Eastern Europe way before World War II, so they were spared the fate that would have awaited them if they stayed. And my dad's family were Sephardic Jews from Turkey, and Turkey had protected its Jews. So the Holocaust didn't really affect me. Now, I knew I had one great aunt who'd been taken from the Greek island of Rhodes by the Nazis. And my dad told me stories about his first cousin that had to sneak out of Paris in the middle of the night. That was it. Then the Holocaust became real to me when I got to go to France in 1995. I was on my way back home from a semester abroad in Moscow. And I was staying in Paris with one of my mom's best friends. And one day, she took me to the old Jewish quarter on the Rue de Rosier. And we got some falafel, and we checked out this Jewish deli, and then we went to this schoolhouse. It was a stone schoolhouse with a big French flag. And it also had this plaque right next to the door. And as she translated that plaque into English, the Holocaust just reached out and touched me. 165 school children were taken from the school during World War II, transported and then exterminated in the Nazi camps. N'oubliez pas. Don't forget. My dad could have been one of those students, easy. Because instead of leaving Turkey for New York, Grandpa Norman could have easily moved to Paris. I mean, he already spoke French fluently, and he only knew those 3 words in English. So instead of being Bobby, my dad could have easily been Robert. And so easily, I could not have existed. The other thing that stuck out for me about that sign was the cops. Because it wasn't the evil Nazis who took those kids out. It was police officers, French police officers. Now, I'd just been in Moscow. I was there for the 50th anniversary of the end of the war, VE Day. And I saw all these old veterans, men and women, marching swiftly with medals on their chests. They were in their 70s or 80s. If they were alive, then these cops, these police officers could be alive too. Maybe just living 20 blocks from the school. What do they think about the choices they made 50 years before? What did their kids know about those choices? Their grandkids? I got to go back to that schoolhouse just like 3 or 4 years ago. And I spent a long time just looking at that plaque and looking at that big French flag. But this time I saw something I hadn't seen the first time. Across the street with the courtyard, there was another old building, and this one had words on it too. Liberté, égalité, fraternité. Freedom, equality, and brotherhood. Now those kids in the schoolhouse, they thought they were French. They probably learned about freedom, equality, and brotherhood right there in the school. And as I stood it there, I had to wonder, as they were being let out from that school forever, did they look up and see those words? What about the teachers who probably taught them those words and desperately believed in those ideals? Did they see those words as their students were being led away in violation of those principles? And what about those patriotic French police officers who were doing the leading? How do those beautiful words not apply to those children? Why were they discounted? But I've been doing some discounting too. Like that great aunt of mine. She wasn't just a great aunt. She was also my Grandpa Norman's sister. His little sister, Naile. Naile Fresco Gayam was taken from the Greek island of Rhodes with her family and all her neighbors, put on a boat, and put on a train, then forced to line up, forced to strip, and then killed, along with her husband and their daughter, Zelda, who was my dad's first cousin. My dad was probably 13 at that time. So that means throughout the whole war, Grandpa Norman was raising my dad, going to work, being a husband, and worrying about his little sister. And then one day he got that letter which confirmed his worst fears about his family. How did he wake up the next day, and every day after that, knowing that his sister had been murdered? And then later finding out that this beloved new country of his hadn't done everything it could have to prevent it. How did that affect him? How did that affect the way he raised my dad? How has that affected the way my dad has raised me?